Aliens. Considered by many to be one of the best sequels ever made, and in some ways they are right. It was directed by James Cameron, who is no stranger to film history. His films are often very ambitious, large in scale, yet simple on ideas. This was his second movie. Well, technically his third, because his first movie was Piranha 2: The Spawning, but that doesn't count. His first true film was The Terminator, and then after that came Aliens. So between 1984 and 1986, he seemed to be on a winning streak. Many things have been said about Aliens. Some say that it is an improvement over the first one. Others say that it is the best film in the entire series. It also appeals to film fans who appreciated the atmospheric artistry and build-up of the first film. But it also appeals to film buffs who wanted more action in their sci-fi films. It pleases everyone. Even if you have never seen the first film before, you at the very least know a little bit about it based on this movie alone. So, with all that said, let's get this show on the road. Okay, Uncle. Check movie date release. Okay. Launch file Aliens. Oh, that's right. Okay. I get you. Run file Aliens. Alright. Let's talk about one of the best sequels of all time. For this video, I will be referring to the director's cut. Unlike the first one, where Ridley Scott has said that he does not want people to watch the director's cut, in this movie, James Cameron encourages it. Because the director's cut, Cameron says, is his preferred vision, the one that he wanted you to see. So we're going to be reviewing the director's cut for the duration of this review. Picking up some time after the events of the first film, Ripley is discovered floating around in deepest space by a large vessel who we learn is the ship carrying the company she works for, Weyland Yutani. She finds out that she has been in hypersleep for 57 years. She learns that not only did her daughter pass on, but the company doesn't believe her story about the alien that killed her crew, and that she had to blow the ship in order to destroy what was left of the alien. At least she thought she did. She learns of a group of colonists that mine planets in order to make planets breathable, and the alien planet from the first film, LV-426, just so happens to be colonized by those miners. The reason why the company does not believe her about the alien attack is because the miners have been down there for nearly 20 years, and they never once had a single issue encountering an alien. But once they lose contact with the miners, they ask Ripley to help them understand what is really going on. Ripley is told that there are a group of soldiers known as the Colonial Marines, who may be able to help her locate the Xenomorphs. They are primarily a unit that hunts down big bugs, but they have never encountered a Xenomorph before. So yes, before Starship Troopers, aliens had Marines fighting bugs. You know, I wonder if Paul Verhoeven actually saw this movie and wanted to make a movie about Marines fighting bugs, while simultaneously being a satire on military recruitment videos. She accepts the offer and goes back to LV-426 to kill the aliens for good. The reward? Her license as a flight officer will be renewed, because earlier her license was revoked. The Marines in this movie don't act like your typical Marines. These are war heroes who have fought battles, but rarely are they ever blood hungry. These Marines I could actually follow. Out of the entire crew, 2 of them stuck out the most to me. Hudson, played by Bo Paxton, and Vasquez, played by Jeanette Goldstein, a female warrior among the other Marines. Hudson is the Marine who has a smart mouth, but is fearful of everything. During the entire ordeal, he constantly assumes the worst, thinking doom and gloom for him and everyone else. Vasquez is an interesting character. She's tough like Ripley, but the difference is that she feels like an outcast. She's trying to stand out from the other Marines. Her battleship, called the Sulaco, is a well-designed ship, a far cry from an Nostromo which looked like an oil tanker in space. The Sulaco is described as a mega livable version of a pulse rifle, which is the gun that some of the Marines use in the movie. The company's ship is also a well-designed vessel. This vessel, known as the Gateway Station, is the equivalent to the vessel at the end of Empire Strikes Back, where it's almost like a living quarters in space. There is, once again, an android in this movie. His name is Bishop, played by Lance Hendrickson. This time, he's not going to portray the crew like the android did in the last one. In fact, although he is fascinated with the alien facehugger and wants to study it, he actually does some things in this movie to help Ripley and the Colonial Marines. In fact, he's barely in the movie at all. He only shows up a few times, and at first you assume that he's a villain. Here, he's not a threat, which is actually a good thing. There's an interesting scene where Ripley and Marines walk into a laboratory and they see one of the facehuggers in a jar as part of an operation to remove a facehugger. The person they were operating on was the father of a little girl named Newt who had been hiding in the mining facility for some time now. Once they get down there, they notice that it's completely unrecognizable. Apparently, the Xenomorphs have been building a colony in this facility. This is where the movie gets kind of clever. If the Marines fire their weapons, the entire facility will explode because the firepower in those pulse rifles will cause a plasma reaction. These single little details adds to the world that the Xenomorphs created. We later find out that Burke knew that there was something down there and sent the colonists there anyway, and the only reason Ripley found out was because she checked the logbooks. There is one important detail that separates this movie from the first one, and that is that it sets up a war for the rest of the series. The first film had a simple mentality to introduce the concept of how terrifying space can be, while simultaneously introducing us to the aliens' behavior, personalities, and how they breed. In this movie, you see how they thrive. They are able to create their own hives, recolonize their own environments, and of course, they are under the command of the alien queen herself. The queen is the one who breeds the Xenomorphs. You ever wondered how all those eggs got there? Well, that's all because of the queen. Also in this movie, the Xenomorphs move much better. They're more animated, more agile, and they seem to be more tactical as opposed to the first film. The aliens not only travel through vents, but they also travel in groups. They don't just travel in the air vents, they go all over the place. This movie has another big advantage: the character development on Ripley. By the way, there's actually an interesting scene where you actually get to know Ripley's first name. Ellen. Ellen Ripley.
See you, Hicks.
Dwayne. It's Dwayne.
Ellen.
Don't be gone long, Ellen.
She isn't just a character who thrived after watching her crewmates get killed by the Xenomorph. This time, she is more of a leader in this movie than she was in the last one. Her strong, determined nature makes her a role model. Unlike other movies nowadays where female characters are the leads because the writers wanted to push an agenda without making the characters interesting, Ripley is a three-dimensional character who's overcome a huge struggle and yet still has the courage to continue on despite the carnage that goes on around her. She's selfless, resilient, dominating, caring, and on top of that, she is also a lioness who protects those who she cares about most. In this case, she has a strong bond with Newt. Her caring, motherly affection toward her is believable because she had a child at one point but died before the events of this movie. With Newt, it seems like she has a second chance at being a mother, and that's why Ripley is so devoted to her. This, combined with Newt losing everything and everyone she cared about due to the alien, makes them a fitting combination. In most action films, not all, but a vast majority of them, the characters make ludicrous decisions to make the action seem more epic and big. And this leads to logical inconsistencies aplenty. In Aliens, the decisions and battle plans are actually very smart. The Colonial Marines are able to figure out that the aliens travel through a ventilation system. Of course, we know that, but they don't. There's about 10 vents, maybe more, running through the entire colonist facility. If they cut off access between 5 of those vents, they'll be able to corner the alien and thus eliminate it. Another smart decision is where Ripley gives Newt a watch for good luck. It's actually a tracker. When she gets kidnapped by one of the aliens in the movie, she is able to be found thanks to the tracker Ripley gave her, and of course her screams. The action scenes are fantastic. There is not one scene that is out of place or over the top. It's exhilarating and sometimes even intense. Not only that, but you can actually see everything. The camera rarely ever shakes. This, in combination with the high energized music and the wonderful sound design, makes you feel like you are there with the Marines fighting the Xenomorphs. The music was composed by James Horner, who did memorable scores for a number of well-known films like Braveheart, Apollo 13, Field of Dreams, Glory, and 2 other James Cameron films, Avatar, and his Oscar-winning score for Titanic. Considering he hardly had any real time to make a perfect score for Aliens, it's amazing what he came up with. Honestly, I would hear this if I was actually fighting Xenomorphs. Here's a quick sample of one of the best scenes. The fast editing is only used when necessary. The scene where the facehuggers attack Ripley and Newt was achieved through animatronic puppets, reverse photography, and wires. Lately, I have been very critical of fast-paced action movies, but this movie is an exception. The effects on both movies utilize the best of what you can do with practical effects. Hydraulics, puppets, men in suits, enormous sets, animatronics, matte paintings, models, blue screen, green screen, front screen projection, custom-made props, and machines, all of which are utilized perfectly. In terms of effects, there are more effects in this movie than there were in the last one. The best effect in this movie is the Queen herself. Oh my god. A combination of hydraulics, wires, people in suit armor, cables, careful movement of the camera, and the operators operating every single part of her. To see it is a marvel. To think of how much time it took to bring that to the screen. Speaking of which, that is the most famous sequence of the film, the climax between Ripley and the alien queen, which was not designed by H.R. Geiger, but actually James Cameron himself. Without giving too much away, it is one of the most involved, most complex, most exhilarating sequences in the entire film.
Get away from her, you bitch!
By the way, LV-426 actually has a name. Yes, I'm not kidding, it has a name. They call it Echion. I didn't even know that until I looked up behind the scenes information in this box set. See, that's a reason why I love behind the scenes documentaries on DVDs and Blu-rays, because you learn so much about how a film is made and what the thought process was like. It's really fascinating. There are themes in this movie, but there actually are way more themes in this movie than there was in the last one. This movie is not just an enhancement of the first film, there's a lot more to it. One theme that gets brought up is the theme of motherhood. We have 2 types of mothers, Ripley's selfless and caring love, the other, the alien queen, who's a selfish, over-dominating mother. One other theme you will notice is the horrors of war. Essentially, this movie is an allegory for the Vietnam War. Take note that the Marines are dressed up in futuristic Vietnam War armor, equipped with the latest technology, and the Xenomorphs are only using the most primitive survival tactics, which is to use stealth kills. The Marines have guns, the aliens sneak up on people. Hudson is essentially a representation of what most veterans, not just Vietnam War veterans, but also war veterans in general, would be going through in a situation like that. A situation that they've never been in before. They start to get tense, they panic, they think the worst, their mentality becomes unstable or outright destroyed. These are all common occurrences of not just Vietnam War vets, but also soldiers in any war in general. So it shows that the Marines are not just soldiers, but they're also human. Film history comes into play in our next theme, masculinity. At this time, action movies were a male-dominated genre. Rambo, The Terminator, The A-Team, 48 Hours, Commando, people like Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Charles Bronson, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steve McQueen all dominated the action genre with their tough exterior, great strength, and trigger-happy attitude. But here, a woman would put herself out there to not only wipe out these aliens for good, but also to protect someone she cares about. It was quite new at the time, and the theme of masculinity and male dominance was suddenly changed by Ellen Ripley. She became a role model. It was because of this performance that she got her first Oscar nomination. It's easy to forget what an impact the first two movies had on cinema. Some people just don't delve deep into these things and instead enjoy these movies as great sci-fi movies or great sci-fi horror or action movies. They don't think about the philosophical themes of these movies, nor do they even know there are any philosophical themes in these movies. There's more to these two films that people realize. The first film was about the terror that you don't see. Aliens was about the horror that you do not only see, but feel. Honestly, I like it more the second time than I did the first time. I saw this movie once before, but I didn't really remember it, or I don't even think I finished it. But I think I like this movie more now the second time than I did the first time I saw it. And while the first movie is still amazing to me, and that will always remain at the top, Aliens is like a close second. So close. It's almost better than the first. It really is. It's almost better. And that's probably because it had the right people, it had the right intentions, it had good character development, smart writing decisions, and on top of that, there was something about it that clicked. There was something about it that worked. This movie has proved that a good sequel can be done with the right people and the right intentions. I have been critical of popcorn flicks over the last year and a half. I've been pretty much contemplating why I ever reviewed them in the first place. But this movie is not a popcorn flick. I consider this film a thought-provoking sci-fi action film with few horror elements. Aliens deserves your attention. It's a roller coaster ride that is worth taking. But remember, watch the director's cut. Watch the director's cut and you'll have a better time. Trust me.
Aliens. This time, it's war.